Welcome to Catalytic Curiosity. I am your host, James with a Y O'Farron with Catalytic Conversations. I serve remote professionals and hybrid organizations with coaching, consulting, and training to help them reconcile humanity and technology, leading to healthier, digitally integrated lives and teams. On this podcast, I am embarking on a journey of discovery to unearth the roots of digital mastery and maturity beyond mere adulting. I interview insightful and intriguing experts exploring how we can develop sage-like maturity with intention in today's digitized world. Today's episode brings Patrick Kirby to the table to talk about authenticity in social media. Patrick Kirby is the founder of Do Good Better Consulting, author of the Amazon bestseller Fundraise Awesomer, a practical guide to staying sane while doing good, host of the official Do Good Better podcast, and a believer that "we've always done it this way" is the most dangerous phrase in the English language. Patrick has spent nearly 2 decades working as a fundraiser in the nonprofit industry for organizations of all shapes and sizes, most notably as a senior director of development at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the chief development officer at the Ann Carlson Center based in Jamestown, North Dakota. He earned his BA in BS, politics, at Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa, and is hopelessly addicted to super nerdy sci-fi fantasy novels and old school Nintendo games. Patrick married out of his league, so he says, to his wife Shannon, has 3 ridiculously adorable children named Spencer, Preston, and Willow, and lives in West Fargo, North Dakota. You can find him online at dogoodbetterconsulting.com, on Facebook at DGB Consulting, on LinkedIn at Fundraising Dad, on Twitter at Fundraising Dad, and TikTok at The Fundraising Dad. Links will be in the description. During our conversation today, we talked about authenticity online, some of the fears that people have in relation with it, relevant to privacy, and the challenges that come with communicating and connecting authentically online. We talk about the imperative primal importance of connection in online places and as humans in general, and how we can find the courage to be vulnerable and create authentic, real connections. So I look forward to having you join us today with Patrick Kirby on Catalytic Curiosity. Here we go. Well, welcome to the Catalytic Curiosity podcast. Patrick, I am so glad to have you on here. I've been really excited about doing this podcast and getting to know new people and being able to pull people that I love and really value and respect onto it and having really awesome conversations, because I just like to have awesome conversations, and this is a good excuse to, get billed for it. Or I bill myself for it, basically. But we met online through a mutual friend, Glenn, who might actually be on one of these episodes coming up as well, possibly. And I reached out to you and we hit it off on LinkedIn, and then we met in person over some coffee and tea and really had a tremendous conversation. I loved it so much, talking about theater and connection and things like that. It was amazing. And then I starting up this podcast. I reached out to you and you were all gung-ho for it. And we talked about what we might bring up, and what came up really resonates with how we met is authenticity in social media. What does that mean for you? What does that look like for you to be authentic in social media? Why is that important?
Well, first of all, Jim, thank you for having me on. First of all,
Absolutely.
This is great. And
my honor.
Authentically, super stoked to be here. I'm super appreciative of you asking me to be there. And I think I love the topic, and I think we get along great. Also, great name for the podcast. Like, some podcasts have very boring names. Yours does not.
Glad to hear it. I won't have to change it.
Unless you change it, and then it's great too. But here's the thing. So, leading with the question with authenticity, it's exactly the reason why you and I are chatting today, right? Mm-hmm. So, you reached out via an introduction to me, but you reached out through social media. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of creepy people on social media. There's a lot of awesome people on social media.
There's a lot of bots on social media.
But I'm always attracted to and want to meet up with and want to connect with people who are seemingly authentic. And so, you kind of have your authenticity radar going at all times, especially in business. And again, time is super valuable. It's probably more valuable than money at this point.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to waste an hour of my life talking to somebody that I'm not going to have a genuine connection with. And so you got to either take risks or you got to have this little, voice in your head that says it's great.
Yeah.
So, but you kind of knew right out of the gate that this was going to be a super fun conversation. Just the keywords that we were using together and just sort of chat, it was going to be great.
Like almost like a virtual handshake. Like
totally.
In the tech world, you have a handshake where one computer sends one thing to another computer, and the other computer hands back, and there's an exchange of information that shows up. You're real. You're the computer I'm supposed to be talking to. And in the physical world, we do that with the physical handshake. Yeah, this person's real. He's not a ghost. He's not going to stab me because I'm holding his hand that would normally hold a knife. You have this exchange of trust. But in this brief conversation that we had on LinkedIn, like you said, there's exchange of like secret code words that aren't really secret. We're just being ourselves, and it established an exchange of vulnerability that led to trust.
Right. And exactly, again, what is meaningful here is that's the nerdiest explanation about this I've ever heard in my life, and I appreciate
that's me.
Somebody who's a nerd. This is what it is. But then we meet first. We grab coffee, and instantly you were like, "Yep, you're exactly the person I thought."
Instant resonance from across the room.
Totally, and that right there is why authenticity is so important online, is because if you ever get the chance to work with somebody or meet somebody or talk with somebody, they're looking to connect with the person that you put yourself out there as. And if you have to justify why you were putting that stuff out there or saying the things you were because that's not who you are, you're already off on a bad foot. Right. Or conversely, if it's exactly who you thought it was, you're now running down this sort of connection, relationship kind of thing, rather than just sort of like walking along. And then you get to explore so many more things rather than like starting off with the small talk. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about your stuff.
Where did you go to school?
Where did you nobody cares about that after this, right? So those can be filler conversation pieces. Those can be bonus add-ons to how you relate and learn about people, rather than that's your starting point. And that's why that's authenticity is so important.
There's one of the things that I found that I really struggle with myself personally with trying to market, because I believe in relationship-based marketing and in networking, in connections and community and all this. Like all of the business I get is through networking, and I haven't gotten a single cent back from any cent I spent in ads. It's all been personal networking that I've gotten all of my revenue back from, and building my client base and everything. Right. But the one thing I struggle with is, how do I connect meaningfully and authentically with these authentic people that I want to relate to? Because all the automated, all of the spammy, all of the crazy emails out there that you get filling your inbox are trying their best to imitate authenticity. Everything down to carefully calculated misspellings, and not capitalizing the first letter of the subject line in the email, and these things to try and make them look like they're human. And some of them may actually be human, but they're still spam. And like, what is the difference? How do you really create authenticity that's actually authentic?
Yeah, that's the difficult part.
It's $1 million question, because if we answer it, we can go sell it and make more spam.
So we want to draw this out as long as possible, because then people will come and we'll put together. Yeah. So this is where I think self-awareness of who are you talking to in real life rather than just on the internet, and are those the type of people that you are trying to grab attention from? And here's the best part about it: if you do grab the attention of somebody, or somebody's grabbed the attention of you, and it's not who you thought, and you cease to continue that relationship, good, because this frees up your time from trying to either convince yourself that you matter, or to that person who doesn't give a rat's behind on who you are, or they're not who you thought they were. So you're not going to waste your time either in developing a relationship or chatting further about something is not going to end up right. And then it's the practice of trusting your gut on this is the type of individual or business that I want to be associated with and I want to continue. And so it's really trusting yourself, listening
as a human, being human.
Yeah. And it's difficult because the internet and this sort of spam universe that we live in tricks your brain into thinking like, am I doing it wrong the whole time? No.
Am I a robot?
Am I in the Matrix at this point? Which is a legit question. We could discuss either.
We could do a whole episode on that. We might in future.
Totally. But I think, but it tricks you into thinking that everything you've done for your entire life has been wrong. And it's programming your brain to go, nope, hold to your guns. This is who I want to connect with. This is who is in my tribe. You align with me. I know that for a fact. I have this gut instinct about it, and then trusting it and going. You might make a couple of hiccups along the way. We all do. But generally speaking, your gut is going to guide you that North Star.
Because computers don't have guts, and we do.
By the way, there's a great commercial on TV right now that I saw, which was a computer. It was a robot at a coffee shop trying to determine if there's a stoplight in a photo to get to the next box, or like he can't click the "I'm not a robot" box. Hey, can you help me? I need to gain access to this. And I'm like, no. And I just
love it.
It's the most meta joke of all time. I don't even know what the commercial's for, but I was.
So in that sense, the marketing fails, but they tell a great story. That's hilarious. I'll have to go look that up. That's awesome. Yep. So one of the challenges that I thought about in connection with being authentic online is the fear that comes with that. And we've talked about how people are very distrustful of the digital world in general, and in particular of being themselves in the digital world, because it's so easy to create an anonymous profile of yourself that looks nothing like you whatsoever. I mean, most of my digitally generated profiles have me with a green beard rather than a red beard, just because it's easier to do that. It costs less to do it in an avatar. But I love it and I do it. And some of them have glasses and I don't wear glasses. But this isn't me in one sense, but when I'm behaving in that persona in these particular places that I may not want to connect back to myself sometimes, I'm still being me.
Yeah.
And some people don't even want to do that. Like what's the distinction there? Where do we draw the line? Where does privacy play into all this?
First of all, I don't think it does. I think we're well past privacy, and I don't think it matters because as you've said before, and as you've alluded to it here, if you're going to be private, you're not going to have connection, right? If you're going to put up a wall, if you're going to put up a persona, you're going to put up an avatar that's not you. You're now purposely saying, I don't want any connection. Which if you have
perfect ideal privacy, you do not have connection. Right. Period.
They're great. And if that's something you want, great. You're not going to live a fulfilling life, I don't think. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find meaning in a lot of things because you're isolating yourself from either different opinions or perspectives or the ability to people for agreeing with you and trying to join
collaborate or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So
and this is actually, they've actually proven this in this is actually in a sense derived from the digital security world. Right? As a web developer working with security, one of the fundamental axioms of security is that usability and security are always inversely correlated. If something is perfectly secure, it is unusable.
Yep.
It's impossible to access, therefore perfectly secure.
Right.
If something is completely easy to use and accessible and really accessible, it's not secure. And so there's always this tensions dividing line. Well, how many hoops do I have to get through? Like I have to do this two-factor authentication thing. I have to go find the app on my phone. It's such a pain. Like, well, that's why it's secure, is because it's a pain.
Right.
But it's the same thing with privacy and connection. It's the same inverse correlation.
Listen, if you have a Netflix account, you are no longer secure and people know who you are.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. If you've ever Googled anything, people know who you are. And that's just the privacy bit that you think you're giving up. It's not that at all. Like the rarity of people stealing your identity and using you in the black market in Eastern Europe is very slim to none, right? It is not going to happen. And the other thing too is that they know you probably better than yourself, right? And I know people who have Netflix accounts, myself included, where I will go suggested for you. And I've never been let down by Netflix. Of course I want to watch. Of course I want to watch.
We're turning to a Netflix ad. Sponsored by Netflix. I wish.
I've never been let down by that because they know their AI runs. These are the things that you typically listen to and typically like. It's if I'm from the gym and I'm just letting my playlist run, they're suggested like, hey, these are things you similarly like, and I like every one of them because that's what it is. And I think
AI is good at
embrace that, saying, wow, I'm going to learn so many new things and be exposed to so many new ideas that I'm probably interested in. And I don't think about the fact that like somebody is trying to be me. Like, who wants to be me? I'm anxiety ridden, 3 kids at home, kind of. You want this gig? Test it out there, man. Let's go. I'll give you a free trial. It's totally fine. You're not going to like it because my brain never stops. That's going to be a crazy thing for you. And I just think it's an over burdensome fear that we take on ourselves.
Yeah, and I think people have a misconception in a sense of what actual identity theft looks like. It's not them pretending to be you and then sneaking in like because they know your favorite kind of macaroni. It's specifically stealing like your financial records and things like that in order to make money, and they do that automated en masse. And in that case, doing basic security things like not using really basic passwords, use a password manager, is basically like washing your hands after you use a public restroom. You should do that. Just to be basically safe. But beyond that, letting people know that you like puppies instead of kittens is not something that's going to impede your security online, and it will actually impede your ability to connect with people if you hide that kind of stuff. You're not being vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's totally okay. And again, you're going to get a lot more fulfilling individuals you interact with, people who like similar things, who are aligned properly with your values and your vision for what you want for your own life or your own business or your own partnerships. That's what you're attracting anyway, and that's what you want to attract. Do you really want to attract people who are like questionable and don't know anything about you? Like that's how much energy that's going to take to filter out all the people that you might not ever get along with because there's nothing that's aligning it. And it's exactly like, do you like I don't know, World War II history? No. Well, I love it.
Yeah,
great.
I like it.
Let's continue this then and see what else we don't like. If I'm obsessed with it and you hate it, let's just keep going on this, right?
Find something else.
So find something else. And if you can forgo a lot of that because people are already aligned in sort of big picture stuff, that's your true relationship. And that's how you start and that's how you develop. And especially if you're a business owner, you want to attract the right people to your business. If you're a coach, if you're a teacher, you want to attract people who are going to align with you rather than trying to sort of get people out and who don't even want what you're trying to offer, but that's what you're going to try to, collect. It doesn't make sense.
When you think on like terms of scale, right? And this is something that you see acted out every time Walmart moves into a small town, right? All of the little businesses suddenly start struggling because Walmart can afford to operate at scale and throw vast amounts of money and operate at loss in order to be able to do all these things, right? And the distinctive role, the competitive advantage that small people, solopreneurs, small businesses have is human connection, customizing themselves to work with you, having a personal relationship of trust, right? That is your competitive advantage in this world. Right. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't make a cent off of any ad that I spend because if you're trying to compete for ad space with somebody like Apple, you can't do it. It just doesn't work. Everything is calibrated. Facebook is calibrated. Everything is calibrated for people who spend millions on their advertising budget in order to subliminally, subtly shift your inclinations towards one thing or like that. We're being dually hypnotized by Android and iPhone to compete over each other. And they're warring with each other with millions of dollars over our attention span and how we're able to relate to them, right? Our ability to connect is that we can operate with each person, not every person.
Yep.
That's the distinguishing factor. Each versus every. I can work with each person with a personal, handmade touch. Like the Amish, they make really freaking good stuff, right? IKEA can mass produce great stuff, right? Amish people make a thing for you. And that's powerful and valuable.
And we talk about this within the business. And I've talked to a couple of either businesses at conferences and stuff like this as a training of treating your customer the way nonprofits treat their donors, right? Nonprofits rely on donations. They rely on support from people who don't have to give. Like there's no obligation that you need to give to a nonprofit. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you to do that. You want to. And the reason you want to is because you've made a connection with their mission or what they're doing.
Yes.
The only reason that you do that is either you've got a personal connection or somebody's tied you to it, or you're passionate about it, or you have this spark of joy that comes with giving either time, talent, or treasure to this place.
Yes.
You can't do that in mass on a scale that people feel you. You could do it if you are going to spend your money, if you're going to be like the breast cancer walk back in the 90s where you just blast it out everywhere and everything's pink. Yeah, I'll give you the small amount.
Yeah.
But the real good relationships and the long-term relationships and the really big gifts are done because of personal connections.
Yes.
That's it. Nobody randomly gives $1 million to a group they have no idea what they do. It doesn't happen.
It's not going to happen.
That never happens. Ever. But they do leave a ton of money when they pass away is because they've given so long and they're so passionate about what they do. They've built you into their will.
Yes.
And that only comes with personal connections. And it's the same thing in business, right? You're going to have people who are passionate and they're going to come back to your stores because they know that you know exactly what they need, or they'll come to you as a coach because they know that you know exactly where their trouble spots are. And that's the power of personal connection. It doesn't matter if you're a big or a small business. If you don't focus on the person, the authentic person, and you're not authentic yourself, people will realize that very quickly and go to find something else that fulfills them.
Right.
And that's where they're going to go and remain.
Yeah. This is something that I am so passionate about in the sense of finding meaning and purpose in belonging. Right. Because I talk about this a lot, that in modern society, we tend to think of identity as that which distinguishes us from other people. Sure. Like a list of different traits, like I'm this way and I'm this way, and I'm not like these people because I'm this way. I have a set of meta attributes that define us uniquely, right? But that's not how the pre-modern mind worked in general. They thought of it in sense of concentric layers of belonging. You find your sense of meaning, your sense of purpose, your direction, your orientation in life to the groups that you belonged to, the relationships around you. And it's those relationships and those communities that embody meaning, that embody value, and inspire action.
Think about how connected societies were for tens of thousands of years. Right? They connect earth and they connect sky, they connect with nature, whatever. They're connecting all of those things. And if we don't work together, we can't survive. If we can't work together, we can't acknowledge who, whatever deity at that point in time in whatever region that they don't connect. Yeah. The whole thing was connection, right? So if you think of technology, you think of social media as the severing of connection, well, then you're missing the point, and you're not going to be able to use this and still have a positive outcome of it. If you turn it around and say, okay, modern technology has allowed us now to connect with even more people. Yes. We can understand more things. Well, now all of a sudden you have a more positive outlook on this whole connection piece. The more authentic you are, you can go and connect with the people who are as authentic as you are. Your army of friends and people who love and admire what you do grows. You can never do that on the scale of it. Oh, no. Before technology in the first place. But you got to get back to what we've been doing this entire time since we've been on this earth, which is finding that connection piece. That's the genius of what you're just talking about, is that it's always been here. Yeah. But we're getting distracted by a couple of other things, or people telling us that that's not the case. Yeah. And the minute we figure that out, oh man, you're gonna be so much happier. Seriously.
We can find our tribe, and we can do so much more this way than by trying to denigrate it. Now, if you want to go and live and reconnect with your local community, absolutely, please do connect with the people around you. I mean, we're both here local to Fargo, and that is amazing. And I love Fargo. Moved here in May, and it's been absolutely amazing. I love the community and the connection and the culture here. But so much of that is facilitated through technology. Like, I would not have been able to connect with as many people as quickly if I hadn't used the technology that was at my disposal when I moved here, knowing no one.
Yep.
Right? Would not have happened. Would not have been able to do it. But my ability to network and connect and relate and to communicate was magnified by the technology. So I say technology in its proper place is an extension of humanity. Mm-hmm. It's not at odds with humanity if it's put in its proper place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we do that? What are some thoughts? Like, let's brainstorm a bit. Like, what are some ways that people can be more authentic and create better connections on social media? We talked a bit about, just following your gut, listening to people, following that human instinct of, reading people and getting an idea, and then also being vulnerable, sharing more of who we are out there. So there's more for people to, feed into their instinct furnace and pop out something valuable, right? Like, I get this constellation of different features about this person, and I get an idea of what they're like. But what are some ways that, in social media, like on Facebook, or on Twitter, or LinkedIn, or in Discord chat, or in work Slack, how can people bring more of themselves into the digital world to connect with people?
I think it's asking two questions. Number one is asking for help for a problem you're trying to solve, whether that's personal or professional, whatever. Like, hey, I got this really big issue that I really don't know how to solve. And that takes a little humility,
yes.
Right? If I'm in the fundraising space, which I am, and I don't know how to do X amount of things for a capital campaign, right? Now, that takes a lot of gall for me to go to hey, I'm looking for someone who can help me with this. I'm not an expert at it. I wish I was, but I'm not. And I gotta swallow a little bit of pride, and I gotta ask for help.
Right.
Your pure communication at that point is going to attract problem solvers. You have a problem, they're going to help solve it. And all of a sudden now you're going to figure out who's going to fit the best personality wise to help you with that. But that you're going to now attract that, right? You're putting yourself out there. The content is authentic. It's original. It's going to, bring other people that you may not even know who have that talent in your pool itself, and go and kind of expose somebody who has a talent. They're like, I didn't know that. That's kind of a cool thing, right? You're asking that question. Or total strangers who you would have never met without posing that particular question in the first place. So that's number one. Yep. And then number two, it's
vulnerability. So critical.
Totally. And then the other one is there anything I can help? Here are my talents that I think I can make the world a better place. Is there anybody who could use that? And how can I be of help to you? Right. So it's service above self at this point, right? And you're now going to get a whole bunch of people who said, my God, I've been wanting somebody to ask this question, or boy, you're a godsend because I've never been able to figure this out. Can you help? Now you're getting value from your own skill set and helping others by just asking that as a question. How can I help?
Yeah.
And it's so amazing how much you are going to realize how much your talents are appreciated when you showcase your talent.
Yeah.
I bet if I hopped on Facebook, and again, I have no extraordinary number of followers. I'm not like a Joe Rogan or an Oprah Winfrey, for God's sakes. But if I said, hey, everyone in my social media crew, I have a particularly good talent about helping nonprofits or people fundraise. Is there anybody in my network that needs a little bit of help today? How many people would just go, I do, I got this thing, or my daughter's selling Christmas cookies, or I've got this for X, Y, and Z. I'd love some help. I'd love to grab a coffee to do that. Well, all of a sudden now people are reaching out to you asking for your help because you've offered it. And now your genuine passion of what you do and what you're good at, now you get to share that with as many people as possible. And you're all by asking just 2 general questions. I need some help, and how can I help?
Yeah. And that really goes down to, I remember when in our first conversation, I actually shared a bit of this about what I believe are like the 4 tiers of society. And at the atomic level, you have a individual one-on-one connection that builds up into relationships, and then community, and then into culture. I won't go into the whole spiel here. I'll probably do a webinar on it at some point. I'll write a book, I promise.
Do both of those things, I'm in.
Yes. But at that atomic level of a connection that happens in the context of a conversation is a mutual exchange of vulnerability that leads to trust. That's what it is. That's all it is. This is the ligaments that hold together the structure that moves and acts and lives and breathes of human society. Are these atomic level connections of exchanges of vulnerability leading to trust. And so those 2 questions are the 2 sides of that transaction, that exchange that leads to trust. You're sharing a little bit of vulnerability at honestly, a quite reasonable scale, saying, I need help. That's just humility. And then sharing a bit of what you have to offer, which is scary for people sometimes, because well, people might make fun of me. They might laugh at me. They might compare me to somebody else that's better than me. Who cares? But yes, those are challenges. Our emotional fears are not reasonable, right?
Nope.
And so what it takes on both those fronts in order to be vulnerable on both those points and create that exchange that leads to the trust, that builds the relationship, that creates a community, a tribe that leads to values and action and transformation that revolutionizes generations. It all comes down to just a little bit of courage. Which goes back to our whole privacy thing, the boogeyman of privacy that's keeping people back from actually being authentic, being able to connect with people. It's so beautiful and so powerful when we can have that courage to step out and share a bit of ourselves and bring some of our humanness online.
In the nonprofit world, we have that tiered usually as you either have an abundance mindset or not.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't have an abundance mindset, you don't think anybody's going to care about what you have or what you're trying to do, right? You have this scarcity model that says, well, there's only a finite amount of people who are going to like what I do, and I'll never be able to go and get them because everybody else has them. The big organizations have all the money and nobody else is going to give it. That's the scarcity mindset, and it is intrusive to your marketing. You can read it and feel it in the way that you talk about your organization or why you need to raise money to make a difference. You can tell that there's a bit of hesitancy because you don't believe deep down in your soul that there are way more people who want to help you than you know.
Yes.
But you just haven't reached them yet.
Yes.
Therefore, or you haven't heard from them yet, and you don't have the patience to develop this long-term plan. And then
patience is so powerful.
There's no immediate gratitude. Therefore, you don't think you're worthy. Well, that first of all, you're 100% wrong. You're just now focusing on that one, in the 24 hours that nobody liked any of my posts. Therefore, everybody must think I'm terrible, which means I must be doing the wrong thing and I should just quit and I'm worthless. Or you take the converse piece, which is there are how many billions of people on this earth? There are how many millions of people in this country? There are how many people who are suffering, and I've got a solution for this. And all I need to do is find a handful of people who are going to champion this as much as I am going to champion this. And together we can go and conquer this issue or this problem or this social ill or social woe. And you then can tell by anybody who believes that in their voice that they are here for a purpose to do good and make the world a better place because they believe in it. And as crazy as it might sound to a lot of people, they believe in it. And it's authentic. Yes. And therefore you're attracted to it and you want to learn more. And the more you learn, the deeper the conversations you have, the deeper the conversations have, the more you're buying into the fact that you could potentially help. And then you move from a transaction of like, I'll give you $5 to transformative in that I'm going to help you raise money or make this go away because you've moved me to want to have as much passion as possible. And you do that through connection.
Yes.
And getting that there's enough people out there who want to learn about you and want to connect with you. And you have to believe that first. Otherwise, everything you do is for naught.
You know, and I've heard of the abundance versus the scarcity mindset. And I know in the context of, personal finances and, being an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial mindset and these kinds of things, it's so critical. And as you're talking, I'm like, this is the same exact thing as the growth mindset, right? If you have the opposite of a growth mindset, you're thinking, well, I was born with this level of IQ, this level of abilities. And if I fail a test, that means that I'm just not that good. And so you don't try anymore, right? As opposed to growth mindset where you believe I can grow. This is an opportunity for me to learn how to improve. And so you hurl yourself at tests in order to be able to know how to improve and how to grow and have these learning opportunities, right? And that's a completely different perspective on the entirety of life, but it's the same mindset, it's the same spirit, it's the same kind of maturity that we need to have in order to be able to grow. But it's expanded into not just an individual, right? It's not just I can grow, but it's that we can grow.
Yeah.
There are more people than me who are passionate about this and a belief in that. That's one of the things about as a coach, right? Because I do digital wellness consulting and coaching and working with individuals to help them communicate better and connect better in online spaces. And you work with nonprofits to help them connect better and be able to grow and fulfill their passions, right? As a coach, part of our job is to help spark that belief and that growth mindset in people, right? I can look at somebody and say, I have a firm, rock hard belief that you have the potential and the capacity to be what you're aiming to be. I help them believe that by believing it for them in a sense. And by building that relationship with them of trust and connection, I'm able to almost infect them with that belief so that when they're struggling and they're not feeling motivated, like, well, maybe I'm not quite cut out. They go, but James really believes in me.
It's funny. It's funny that I think part of my job, most of my job, is like a fundraising therapist.
Yes.
Literally, they're complaining, and I go, you realize that this is the dumbest thing you've ever said out loud because of this. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Of course you haven't, because you're sitting in the muck here.
Right.
You're not seeing how much and how far you've gotten. So that's number one. And then I think a lot of people, and I think this might even be for most business people, sales, marketing, et cetera, is that leadership within an organization typically doesn't go out of their way to show how much they appreciate you or care or tell you you're doing a great job. And
oh my goodness,
you are just now inundated with, well, I'm not doing as well as this company. I'm not doing well here. I'm not getting feedback, therefore I must suck. And
that is directly a cause of burnout. It's not having too much work.
No.
It's not being appreciated for the work you're doing.
75% of people leave their jobs not because of the money. They leave because they're not appreciated. Period.
It's the relationships, the connection.
That's the bit. And so if you're not connected with anybody, you don't see the purpose in it. It burns you out. Yep. So I think as coaches and as trainers and as people who are amateur therapists and non-certified therapists within their
don't sue us.
Not a degree coming out of here. But
no. Way too expensive.
But because you're listening.
Yes.
And you're making connections going, this is not at all you. This is not authentically you. You are talking in a language that's not as positive as you once were. Why? You're asking them quite well, because I don't hear that. I go, but here's where you have been and here's where you are. And this is what you've done. This is remarkable compared to everybody, but mostly because of where you started. And this is what you've done. And just perspective. And I think that's why people need a coach. That's why people need somebody who is, it's not for advice that they don't know. You're the experts in the field.
Yeah.
Perspective that they have. Yeah. The perspective is key to keep you just on the right path, that you don't like veer off this way with the sadness and lack of connection. It's just like, well, you're looking ahead here, Chief, because you're doing great. Like that's the type of thing that I think is so invaluable in our space. The coaching, teaching space is just that perspective, and reminding them that you have done all these things to do connecting wise. This is when you've done all these things to benefit X, Y, and Z. You got to keep that front of mind. And it's hard to do when you don't have somebody who's cheerleading behind you.
Yeah. It's hard to be courageous if you don't have a friend at your side.
Of course it is. It's 100% true.
And I think that's actually a really great place to start wrapping this up in a sense, is that when we want to connect authentically online, we have to be courageous and be vulnerable. Yeah. But we also, in order to be courageous and vulnerable, we need to have somebody along our side in order to be able to help us with that. So that's why I say lasting transformation only happens in community. Lasting transformation only happens in community. We need the people alongside us and around us in order to be able to do that. So if we're online and we're withdrawing, we're being less authentic, we're being less vulnerable, we're actually cutting off our own support system for being able to survive in the online world without burnout, with all the issues that we run into, and the toxicity and all the terrible things that we encounter, all the loneliness and the depression that we see online, is because people are cutting themselves off from their lifelines in that sense.
And that is a perfect wrap up, because that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on here, Patrick, and joining with me. And I'm looking forward to having many more episodes with you in the future. This is going to be awesome. There's so many things in this episode alone that we could take multiple episodes and dive into one-on-one and just go through and have a whole series on them. I'm looking forward to doing that with you and having you on here and working with you and doing more projects with you in future in Fargo and in the wide world online. Thank you so much.
It's going to be great. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for what you do. And thanks for the space to talk about this. And it was great. Super fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had your curiosity sparked to explore these subjects with greater awareness or gained a valuable insight along the way. Take a look at the show notes for links where you can learn more about Patrick and how to connect with him. Leave reviews, the podcast, wherever you can. Make sure to join the conversation on my Discord. Links in the show notes. Community is the catalyst that drives lasting transformation, after all. I'll see you in the next episode of Catalytic Curiosity.